It's not that we do the most complex stuff in the world. It's not like we're doing max snatch, max clean and jerk or things like that really require a lot of coaching, but our programs are complex enough that like we feel like the 4-on-1 model is the right amount of attention. It's everything you said. Market harder, cry, try to get people in, and then try to maximize the good months. All of that is true.
We've kind of identified that like we have a good business that pays for itself from first class. But if we ever want to like actually make like really meaningful margin on what we're doing and reliably maximize the utility and the assets that we have to figure out how to trade these empty spaces for what the market says these spaces are worth.
What's the shit that actually matters? What do you get the most bang for your buck? If you were coaching someone who's like, hey, I can only do one of these things, what is like the most important in terms of driving business for you guys? Hello and welcome to this week's Gym World Worldwide. I am joined, as always, with my co-host, Mateo Lopez. And in this week's very special episode, we happen to be in New York City with our good friends from the Fort, Dan Trink and Kyle Fields. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for
crushing
having
it, guys.
So for context, we are in a co-working space right now. And Mateo and I have been frantically working to kind of daisy chain enough microphones and photos together while we prepare to ask Kyle and Dan how they spend $20,000 a month on recording audio and video.
Indeed.
And then while they were watching us, they're like, oh, by the way,
we have a guy.
All these things and a guy and a space. And so what's the point of building a big network like this if you don't ask them when you need help and things? So
yeah, next time we'll be on our award-winning 4th episode by then, so we'll finally get it right.
Don't be afraid to ask for help, gym owners.
Yeah, don't you gotta reach out when you need a helping hand. But they should have also anticipated
anticipating our needs.
We did ask you guys if you want to be on the podcast.
Anticipating our needs.
Yeah, we're a little slow. We're a little slow on the uptake sometimes. So
all right, so this is extra rare because Mateo and I don't normally film, and then you guys don't normally see each other all the time. It is a unique situation in that you guys are business partners, but Kyle, you live in a different state. How is that working out for you?
I mean, so far so good. Dan and I, we
I
talk,
said you, not Dan.
Yeah. I'm loving living in Texas. It's great, except for I'm definitely losing my New York edge. I can feel it as soon as I come back that like I'm ill-equipped to deal with the people and the stress and the speed compared to what I used to be able to handle.
And based off of your hair, Dan, I can tell that you are absorbing that stress for Kyle as well. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it all falls on me now. I mean, it's fun. We speak every day. We're still in constant contact. Obviously, the world has changed, is where like technology can unite people pretty easily. But it's definitely the downside of it is like it's a little bit more lonely for sure.
So you are. This is your 3rd time on Gym World Worldwide, a fan favorite.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Easily one of the most common intro requests that I get is for Dan Trink. And just FYI, if you're ever doing an intro, always ask the other person before you actually make the intro. So don't just like blind intro someone without getting permission first. So that's context. I try and protect you.
Yeah,
as much as I can.
Yeah, I do not feel violated in any way. So.
Yeah, so you always ask before you make the intro. So in the first episode, for context, we talked about how you guys were spending $20,000-$30,000 a month at the time. It was like peak media spend. What were you spending? How much was it? Media and ads?
It got as high as 40.
Yeah, so you're doing $40,000 a month.
Like we would spend about $1,400 a day.
Okay. And then plus production, right? You were doing
plus production,
$2,000 a week in video and photo and all that. Okay. And then when we spoke that was probably January of last year. Mm-hmm. And then we had Dan on in the fall and you had kind of pared it down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So it was down to maybe half that, less than half of that.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah, by then it was like less than half.
We chopped it down to like a quarter of what it was.
And so where are we now? Media spend.
Oh, media spend?
Yeah.
Maybe like 18.
18
like on like paid advertising.
Okay.
Like 18 a month.
And then what do you and then producing it?
Oh, our content?
Yeah.
So we just kind of stopped working with a like a content creator that we used for like maybe a year. But it just didn't feel like it was going anywhere. It was a very good service to like get daily content out. Like we were able to basically give them everything we had. They gave us things and they reliably posted across all the platforms. But it just, and it at first it was great. We felt really good that we were getting daily content out. We were definitely being seen more, but it felt flat the whole time. And I think the fact that we weren't driving it and curating it ourselves, it didn't feel like it had a trajectory. So we kind of decided to like get back into making our own stuff again. Maybe it's going to be less frequent, but it's going to come from us, and we're going to see if we can like drive it in the direction we want to, lead people down.
So what do you mean? Like what's something they're doing for you guys up here, and then what's something you want to do instead, I guess?
Yeah.
I definitely noticed that there's an alternate. That is definitely part of the content calendar. I don't know if that's deliberate or not.
Maybe, probably. Yeah, I'd be surprised if it was that well thought through. I mean, I think what we had was there was a time where we were generating our own content, editing it ourselves, coming up with the ideas ourselves, trying to find podcast guests, which you guys know plenty about, and anything else. And it's like to really do that well and put it out and really be responsible for yourself is, almost like a full-time job, which is fine. But like we still had the primary job of like running the business, making sure it was, the gyms are full, making sure our product is great. Right. So like it's hard to do both. So we would find ourselves in like sprints of where like Kyle would put a video together every day for 30 days. And they were like the best videos we had. But like at some point you're like, I can't just keep doing this to myself. So
Tired to
Yeah,
hear Kyle talk about burpees.
yeah, I mean, who
Or
can get
on the
tired of
run,
that? But, yeah.
on the run through the streets of New York City.
They were the best videos we had, honestly, if you kind of scroll back to them. But so then we decided, like, we've shot all this content. A lot of it is just sitting around unedited or not put together for the different platforms. So, there's companies that specialize in this. So for, I don't know, whatever it was, 6-8 months, we decided to give it a whirl. And, even with those things, you need to stay on top of it. It's certainly not a full-time job, but it's still a job to make sure that like the content that's getting put out is something you're proud of, that feels like represents you, is what you would want people to see. And we were kind of drifting further and further away from that. So I think we're trying to get to like a happy medium where I don't think we need a piece of content out every day. I mean, I think we have like a big, like kind of binge bank here. If people want to like dig back in and watch 100 videos of us talking, they can do that. And then, month by month, if we put out, if we get together like one nice long form video and cut that down into some pieces for people, and, we show up on someone's feed 2 or 3 times a week, I think that's like kind of the sweet spot and the happy medium of getting content out there, but doing things we're proud of.
So Dan, I didn't tell you this because I didn't know. You had mentioned at our last podcast that you've been writing a weekly newsletter for the last 3 years and nobody read it. And I told you maybe you should put a way to subscribe on the website so people could read it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that you took my advice. And I did subscribe. And it's a really good newsletter, man.
That, man.
The reason nobody commented is because nobody could fucking find it. And now,
there it is.
Look at what happens when you put the box there. You got at least one.
Yeah,
so,
one. Yeah.
So
I was wondering where that one came from, and now I know.
Yeah, so Dan puts out a couple blog posts, and Dan and Kyle as well. They both come from prolific training backgrounds. So not only do they run one of the most successful, especially from a top line, maybe we'll talk bottom line. These are bad months for you, as we'll get into, I'm sure. Small group training gyms. He shares his training knowledge very openly. So go subscribe, and that is my plug for you guys.
I appreciate that.
So maybe you'll get 2 or 3 more there, and then
We joke around about it. The blog actually, like, so I put out 2 a week. One is like kind of a little bit more of like a research based, like kind of nerdy thing that comes out on Thursdays, and then every Monday I put one out that's a little bit more narrative storytelling. I joke around. It's basically like it's like a surrogate therapy session for myself that I just like kind of loft out there for the public. And people seem to enjoy it. Like I do get people responding to it. So it's like a kind of a unique way to kind of connect with our membership and our audience and maybe even more people at large. So
I had a question about the newsletter because I know a little birdie told me you do spend a lot of time researching and continuing to hone your craft. Like you obviously wrote about strength in like Men's Health and magazines, and you're still writing about it now. But yeah, someone who's like very good at strength training, you're still learning more and more about strength training and mindset and nutrition. So how much time do you spend continue to research stuff about training, both of you? And then how do you balance that out with also having to read business books?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this, the strength training stuff, it's 2 hours a week. I mean, that's like kind of a real concrete, solid answer. I read enough that I can really discuss like one good training review, like one good training research paper, one good nutrition research paper. And like, that's plenty. Like people don't want like the nerdiest of information out there. And then like, you know, we're still meatheads at heart kind of. So like, I still like enjoying like, consuming like strength training content and like reading what people have to say. But it's not a ton. I would say our focus is way more on like business operations, sales, trying to learn that part of it. Like we know enough about training to execute like a really good product, even if we probably didn't continue to study. I think it's more just like not falling behind, and it is what our interest is. But like I would say we spend a lot more time on the operational side of things.
Dude, 100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's crazy to think because when we started the gym, all we thought about was training. We didn't want to do sales. We didn't want to do marketing. We didn't want to do any of that. And yeah, it's crazy. Like it's got to be 95% of what I think about is the business. And it feels like I still spend the same amount of time on training. I've just layered on like way more things to think about, just from the responsibilities of growing a business.
All right. So you're researching training, but you're spending more time on business, which
Way
is
more.
probably good when you're running a business.
It's important.
And have a staff of trainers.
Yeah.
Do you call them trainers or coaches? What's the correct word?
Call them coaches.
Coaches.
Mostly. Yeah.
All right. So you're doing all the shit. Like you're posting, you're making good media, you're doing reels, you're writing blog posts, you're running ads. But you got a lot more resources than the average person that listens to this podcast. You know, what's the shit that actually matters? What do you get the most bang for your buck? If you were coaching someone who's like, hey, I can only do one of these things, what is like the most important in terms of driving business for you guys?
If it's really just like kind of driving business and driving customers, if that's like
the one that you would do if you had to pare back on all the other shit, what's like the one thing?
I mean, I would say paid advertising. That would be what I'd say.
Learn that. Like learn how to get people's attention and have conversations.
And what do you guys doing trial still, or is it just top of funnel kind of informational stuff? What's the main drag now?
We still do trials. You know, we're trying to like switch the language a little bit towards like introductory offers, but it's still the same basic idea, which is like a short commitment. We found that like maybe different than something that's like a larger group fitness facility. Our training is like a little bit difficult to understand because like even though it's become more prevalent and certainly like the people that you speak to on your podcast, like kind of live in this world, but the idea of like personal training that's not one-on-one and not a 40-person CrossFit class is still unique to a lot of people. So we find that like they need a few reps to kind of understand how things actually progress and how the sessions work and see where the value is. So we've decided that like single sessions are probably not the best thing for us to sell. And then conversely, our price point is high enough that if you try to get somebody to commit for 3 months before they know what it is and before they trust you, that doesn't work either, right? It's a high enough ticket. So we kind of stick with this trial based on, you know, usually around 4 to 6 sessions, try to get people that experience the gym.
We should probably back up and explain what your gym does and just not assume people listen to the 2 hours of the podcast. So, all right. So for those of you, this is nice. I like the screen and the in-person thing. So They're New York City's best small group personal training gym. And the trial, give us 2 weeks to change the way you feel about fitness. So what is small group personal training?
Yeah. I mean, the way we define it is in groups.
That's nice, though. That's very clear. That's, passes the test. You're with the website, guys. I like that. That's nice.
Yeah, thank you. For us, it's 4-on-1 training. So
you're still 4? You haven't upped it yet?
No, we haven't upped it yet. I see why people do
6.
Yeah.
Or 8.
Yeah, 6 or 8. I know that's like probably way 6 seems to be like the one that's gained a lot of traction recently. No, we've stuck it at 4. It's just given, it's not that we do the most complex stuff in the world. It's not like we're doing, max snatch, max clean and jerk or things like that really require a lot of coaching, but our programs are maybe complex enough that like we feel like the 4-on-1 model is the right amount of attention.
So a lot of people run this model. I think for clarity, it is one workout. Everybody does the same workout that day, right? So it's not customized programming like a lot of people do. It's you're all doing the same thing, right?
Right. Which is, it's become the nomenclature, the semi-private personal training versus small group personal training, right? It's kind of become a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a distinction.
Distinction.
So I'm trying to pull up like pictures, but these are, So you tend to skew a little younger than the average person running this model. A lot of the people we talk to are in the burbs or going for like the 45-year-old mom. What's kind of your bread and butter client?
Yeah, it's funny.
A good mix. There's still, I used to go to the gym, and I think it's a good mix. There were still some.
You are not a 45-year-old mom.
No,
so
but there were
just
some.
Proving my point.
No, but there's some 4-year-olds in there for sure when I was training.
And it kind of depends what time of day you go.
Yeah, that too. I was in the morning.
And even the neighborhood, right? We have an Upper East Side gym. The demographics there are probably a little different than downtown. So
what are you targeting? Who do you want?
Yeah. So it's funny. We were just having this conversation today. I think our target is a little bit less about like demographics and a little bit more about values. Like, because we do have, moms who drop off their kids and come, and we have some former athlete, finance bro, 5:30 in the morning, tear the handle off the rower kind of guys. And both those people can have success in the gym. So it's very hard for us to just like just give a specific avatar. I think what we're saying is that like our avatar is like very hard to nail down to something specific. So it's like, what are people looking to get out of training? Maybe like what their training history is or their training age is a little bit more reliable for us as far as like kind of pinpointing who we're attracting, former personal training clients, disgruntled CrossFitters, as we like to call them, group fitness people who want more strength training or a more structured environment, beginners who want more support with strength training, former athletes, like all those people train with us, right? So it's more the values of like really efficient, well thought through training, more than necessarily like a specific demographic type.
Are these actual members or are these just like coaches and stuff?
You're a little bit of a mix of both, but more members
are
than
these
coaches.
Planted? There's a lot of good-looking people in sports bras here.
Yeah,
that's my wife.
I was going to say that. I knew that one. I wasn't going to.
Yeah, most people.
There you go.
Yeah,
there's sports bra.
Yeah, those people are clients. So those are all clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said the ads. One of the things that you guys do though, and one of the things that we talk to a lot of gym owners is like, get at least like a crop of photos and a couple like videos of something like this, where you got like people working out in the gym, make the gym look good. Because if you do that, it just makes the media look so much better, right? Like the site looks pretty solid. And a lot of that is just like, your gym looks good, right? That's the first piece. You guys did a good job building it out, but you got really great photos and videos. And so for what you guys spend, I would expect that. But you could probably get it done for way less, right? Like if you were, building a gym in Secaucus, you could probably get some photos done for under $40,000, right?
I would imagine that like probably everybody is doing it cheaper than we are. I'd say that just universally. That's probably true.
So speaking of cheaper than you are, the reason we had you on last time is you had just opened a flagship location on the ground floor in the Flatiron district. Where is it? Are we technically in Flatiron right now?
Yeah.
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 Nomad.
We're on the cusp.
Yeah.
We're on the cusp.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was a big liability. What was it? 20 grand a month?
Yeah.
More?
Yeah, a little more.
Yeah.
A little more. Yeah.
You paying for that thing yet, or you underwater there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, we're paying for it.
Yeah, it's good.
I mean, good. I mean, you can define good. It's
Like, do you regret doing it yet, or?
yes and no. Like it's
Because that was where we left off. Like, we're gonna see how
Didn't
this
take
plays
long.
out for you.
yeah, it's a little bit of yes and no. I mean, it's an amazing space, and in the long run, it's going to be an amazing asset for us, and it is an amazing gym. It's something that Kyle and I had eyeballed when it was a plumbing supply store 10 years ago that we thought would make a great gym, and it turns out that we were correct in that. I mean, the thing is with any new gym, right, it takes time for it to get its legs under it and to fill it and to make sure it's running well and it's operational and to get some sweat in the walls and make it feel like a used place where people can like get work done, and it's not a spa, right? So like it's in the process of that, and it just like takes a little time to get to like a capacity thing where it just feels like it's up and running, but it's, it's trending in that direction. It's still like fairly new.
Well, one of the things that you did that was kind of interesting was you didn't close your old gym, which is on the same street, right?
Yeah,
We tried.
we tried. we looked into it. We looked into it.
We added it up. Yeah.
Okay. So because you technically, there's 3 locations, right? There's the one in the Upper East Side, which kind of does its own thing. You have the original location, which is the one on the website here, this one, which is like tiny, right? It's 2,000 square feet, maybe less.
Yeah, right around there.
And then the new one, which is on the same street, that's what?
Well, that's 2 gyms.
Yeah.
So we
like,
mean it's 2 gyms.
Yeah,
There's an upstairs and a downstairs
Those
on
are
that
2
one.
gyms with separate staffs, like full. Yeah.
Wait,
we
I
basically
don't
have
remember
3.
this.
Yeah, we basically have 3 gyms
On the same block.
Yeah.
So hold on, what's the difference in between the
There's
upstairs
the engine
and
room.
Yeah, nothing. So the gyms are all the same.
Is there a different site for the?
No, they're all operated
can
under the
see
same
it.
site. Yeah.
Okay.
The difference between the gyms, they all operate in the same model. They have their own schedules. They're all unique. If they just happen to share a block, if they didn't, you would think that they would just be just other locations of the same company. The conditioning equipment we have in each is a little bit unique to each gym, just based on the layout. Like we have one gym that where sleds make sense, where in another gym they might not. So we just have unique conditioning equipment, but the program, the setup, the staffing, they all run like unique locations, like individual gyms with like management staff and a clientele base and everything else.
But if you go to locations, there's only 2.
I would say that there's 2 locations in the city where we have gyms. It just happens to be that one of the locations has 3 gyms in it.
You see how this would be a little confusing as it's coming out of your mouth.
Yeah. But if you're calling us and you're like, I'd like to train in Flatiron, and like, it doesn't matter which
Upstairs, downstairs, or the way downstairs.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We'll tell them where to go. You know what I mean? Based on what their needs are.
Hey gym owners, are you looking for a way to generate more leads, close more sales, and increase client retention? Introducing Kilo. We are a software company that gives gym owners the tools they need to increase revenue and run a successful gym. With Kilo, you get a beautifully designed website to capture more leads, an integrated marketing automation platform to increase sales, and our gym management software so you can add new client memberships, process payments, and organize your class schedule. If you're ready to upgrade your gym management software, book a call at usekilo.com.
So then how do you guys think about packaging and pricing? Like, what do you guys charge? And has that changed recently over time?
I think the way that we conceptualized it has changed like in a pretty big way recently.
Yeah.
So
tell me about that. Tell me your philosophy on how you package your price.
Generally, like we have a good sense of what it costs per session when we're hitting our revenue targets to like offer that session itself. So we learned that we have, obviously like 4 spots per session. There's like a lot of limited space. Like we can't just pack out like the 7 a.m. with like 30 people. So, each spot on the schedule is worth about like $47.50. No, let me rephrase that. Each spot on the session costs us $47.50. So like we need to sell each spot for $50 to $60, probably like averaging like 55 per session. So we do that. We sell everything that we do kind of ranges between like $55 a session or $50 a session and $60 a session.
Wait, so you're saying it costs like an hour of class costs you $200 is your weighted cost?
Yes, a little under, but yeah.
So that's it. You have to make $200 in that class slot
on average
to just keep the lights on.
To break even. Right.
And so what determines that range?
My heart rate, I'm going to get like an elevated heart rate there on my Apple Watch, just thinking the math through that. So how many sessions are you running in the flat iron? Like what's capacity?
On average, like every gym does 20, like probably 20 sessions a day. We have some that do 18, some that do like 26.
Hold on, 20 sessions a day per gym?
Oh yeah, we do like 70.
It's on the half hour, so
like
it's
76 sessions per day.
Yeah, remember our groups are very small, so we need a lot of
76 sessions per day in the flat iron.
That's flat iron and Upper East Side. Yeah.
Okay, 76 a day.
Like
so what does that work out to weekly? Whatever 76 times 7 is. Don't worry, guys.
It's more times 6 because Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah,
are like
Saturday, Sunday are half days. So.
Okay, so you're running 450 sessions
per week.
Per week
Yeah.
of 4 people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
times $200.
Right. So we look at yeah. So we look at like enrollment targets. Like we know like we need people in the space. We know that they're going to be paying in this range. So like we need a certain amount of enrollments to like hit the revenue that we got to hit.
So why is there a range? What determines the just amount of sessions sold or in a package or
sometimes
intro offers?
You could pre-sell like 4 months up front. So you're collecting more revenue than you're actually like delivering in that month. And those things like tend to affect like your revenue per session, you know, in a weird way. And that's like, that really depends seasonally. Like right now, people aren't like spending as much upfront because they're on vacation. They're not like back from the summer or, you know, they're in the Hamptons. So like, you know, seasonally you're going to collect like more cash that's going to be utilized like right away for the session versus like upfront collected later. But yeah, we have it pretty well dialed in of like what it costs to deliver each session. And we're looking at things now a lot more like an airline of like, look, we've paid for the rent. We've paid for the staff. We've paid for the electricity. There's like, you know, no marginal cost to like actually having the session filled versus not having it filled. And our job really needs to be now to just fill the gym and figure out, you know, how do we take like these, you know, the empty sessions that we have like in the middle of the day that like aren't automatically filled like you would in the mornings and the evenings, and figure out from the market like what they're worth, how they're best utilized, what the market will trade for those sessions, how we do that in a way that our customers can understand different price points for different types of sessions and people feel good about the pricing like across the gym.
So you guys are fucking around with dynamic pricing basically.
Yeah. Like how do we make that make sense for us? Right. And up until this point, we wanted everyone in a guaranteed priority reserved time slot throughout the day as much as possible for the lowest price that we were offering. And we were charging more for like session packs where people had a lot more flexibility. We were charging like between $60, $70 a session, maybe $75 a session. If you had full flexibility to schedule yourself, if you know your sessions don't expire at the end of the week or at the end of the month, because we want to encourage people like down to the lower price. What I think we realized that we did by doing that is like we devalued our best thing.
That's basically like the similar problem as like unlimited classes. Basically, it's like similar.
Yes,
you guys
devalue your best thing,
right?
unlimited classes.
Yeah, you don't know. Everything's like calculated, right? You can't risk having someone showing up 6 times a week with those type of numbers.
Yeah, we did that early on, and it bit us in the ass. Yeah. So like we had to undo it. It took a lot of time to like get people out of the mindset that they couldn't come every day.
Let's stop. Sorry to interrupt you, but I literally had a conversation with a gym owner they only offered unlimited classes. And then they said they didn't want to offer less than that because they said they needed people coming in 5 times a week to see results. And I was kind of like, I think all my favorite models, they don't offer unlimited. They do anything but unlimited.
What kind of training was this guy doing that he needed that much time to get those kind of results?
It was a she, and it was women can own businesses.
Yeah. I appreciate you.
In some parts of the country. Yeah.
They have that in the books you're reading, huh, Dan?
Yeah, wrong books. I'm in the wrong books apparently.
It was a CrossFit gym.
Okay. Yeah. I guess we would argue that, like, listen, there's some people who like to train with high frequency, and if you have the recovery capabilities and your programming is very smart and you're adjusted for that, it can certainly work, but it's not necessary.
This is not a programming show.
Yeah.
So, just from a business standpoint, why is that a bad idea? Unlimited classes being the default for the only membership you offer.
Yeah, I mean, because the value per class will just go down. People want volume discounts essentially. So you can do an unlimited session, and if you charge someone, an unlimited membership, and if you charge that, like, well, this would be the same as if you had a 7-day per week membership, then sure, it could work, but like nobody wants to do that.
Right.
And there's another like issue with it that puts you at odds against the customer. That you're in a better spot if they never come. They're in a better spot if they come all the time. Yeah. And like, that's not great to be like head to head with your customers.
So what are the lessons from the airline? Then are we?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to leave your backpack in the cubby? That's going to be an extra $5.
Yeah.
Oh, did you want water from the water fountain?
Yeah.
That's going to be. Oh, you need a premium plus. You need the Advantage membership. Yeah. Oh, you want to cancel? You want to reschedule your class? There's a $50 change fee unless you have elite status.
Yeah, I think like what we've learned, like looking at our business, is like we've been flying like a regular plane with a full first class section and nobody in coach. Because we've been charging first class prices for the whole plane, whether you were in first class or you were in coach. In fact, I think we even charged more for coach than we charged for the first class seats.
Right. So there's going to be lower price memberships coming to the fore.
How are we fixing? How are you thinking about it now?
Yeah. So I think the way that we're looking at it is we aren't sure what those are worth. Like, we're at a point where we're looking at like these empty seats. We've kind of identified that like we have a good business that pays for itself from first class. But if we ever want to like actually make like really meaningful margin on what we're doing and reliably maximize the utility and the assets that we have to figure out how to trade these empty spaces for what the market says these spaces are worth. The challenge is the more that those spaces fill up, the lower the value of the sessions become, because you don't have a reserve time. There's no promise that you're going to be able to come today. You might not be able to come at all. How do I sell you something that's ethical, that's not like going to make me feel terrible about myself as a business owner? Something you can use and preserve the value, but matches the utility of what it is that you're purchasing.
And if we do fill up those like coach seats, it will put pressure and drive price of the first class. Yeah. So like more people want to prioritize actually getting a spot and not having to fight for one, and that not being part of the equation, which sucks, right? Like, people struggle to have time to get to the gym as it is. They don't want the pressure of like having to schedule themselves. The less spots that are available, the higher the demand for that will be. So you can add more first class seats and charge first class prices for them.
Right.
So you don't actually know what this looks like yet. This is just what you guys are flirting.
We're playing around with it.
We're in the stages of like identifying this is what's going on. We have to figure out how to solve this problem.
So basically we're talking about filling the hours of like 10 to 3, is that what we're talking about?
For a business,
you would imagine, yeah.
For a business like ours, the way that we're limited by 4 people per session, we can't just like book out the 7 a.m. We've got to figure out a way to like utilize that 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And there are people that train and want to train at 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. But like, how do we speak to them, or how do we encourage people that like could but may not prefer it, but would if the price was right?
Yeah, we tried it. We did a midday at the Lower East Side location, and we did like a email campaign or discounted price. And I think the way it worked initially, because there was still that high demand for CrossFit, and also it was still more expensive than any other, like it was still like the weird expensive new training modality. So when you're offering the discount for the midday, in like an ad into the newsletter, it definitely worked for a little bit. We definitely got some bites, and then it was hard for us to retain it for some reason, but we tried it.
Yeah. Well, I think the retention piece for a CrossFit gym is it's much more challenging.
Yeah.
So what is capacity for you guys? Are you still figuring that out?
In terms of like how much attendance?
How many members can you pack into?
It's so hard to say depending on how often people come. So like
I imagine it's 2 to 4 times. Like your average is probably like just under 3.
If you have a member, like if you have a member that reliably comes once a week versus we have members that reliably come 6 times a week. So it's really hard to say like we need this many members. We have a better sense of what like a high level of success in attendance is, because we can kind of reverse engineer like what we're collecting in revenue for each session. So like we know that like 1,650 enrollments per gym per 4 weeks puts us at like a successful place. The highest enrollments that we've ever seen are around 1,850 per gym. So the margin between like good and like great is only about like 200 enrollments per month per gym.
And why haven't you guys just, or what do you think about just having memberships that you're only allowed Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 a.m.? That's your spot. Oh, you do that.
Yeah,
you do that. Oh,
yeah. That's our bread and butter.
Kind of. We have memberships where like you have a session Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Yeah. You could always reschedule it, you know, if you wanted to, but like we reserve the spot for you.
Yeah, you will run up to, I'm sure in any place, but in New York City, like the flexibility objection is like massive. If you do not have any flexibility, you will just not.
Especially at the price point too. They're going to expect a little bit of wiggle room.
Now, particularly people are back to traveling. They're back to whatever it is. Like you can't just be like, hey, listen, you can't make Monday at 7 a.m. It's gone. Like that would not work.
So green for you guys, based off of my back of the envelope math, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 650 to 750 members ish.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends. We look at enrollments just because if we have
how
like
you get paid.
Yeah, if it's a certain, if we can figure out like what the certain like revenue per session is on average, it's just much easier to do it based on enrollments, because if we hit that number with 300 clients or we hit that number with 600 clients, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think that's the second highest we've heard. James Pratt, I think, is the only person running this model with more people packed in there, which, like, do you guys know everyone's names? Or
not probably anymore.
I feel
not
like
between,
that's too hard.
Yeah, not between 4 gyms.
It's too many bodies.
No, a lot of people, but not as much. When it started becoming multiple locations, it became very hard.
And your business is pretty seasonal because you're in New York. Like, in terms of your best month to your worst month, peak to trough, how much of your membership disappears in the summertime? Like percent of revenue wise?
Oh, like 30%.
Yeah, that's about right.
And so what are you guys doing in these soft months? Are you marketing harder? Are you just planning more for when it gets good? Like, how are you?
Yeah.
Are you crying? Like, all of it.
It's all of it.
What do you do during the soft months?
It's everything you said. Market harder, cry, try to get people in, and then try to maximize the good months. All of that is true.
Because we talked to a guy who, same thing, he's in Philadelphia. And so he said, yeah, I'm going to lose 35% of my revenue to the Jersey Shore in the summertime, but I know that. And so he deliberately doesn't market hard. He's like, that's when we do our planning. That's when we do our staff training. That's when we do improvement. And I know in back to school, it's going to be huge. And so we spend what we would have spent playing catch up in the summer, in the fall, when people are receptive to receiving that marketing. So it sounds like you're not there yet. Or don't agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think that would be the way we would look at it. Like, interestingly enough, like, and as hard as it is right now, this is like when it feels like we have the best opportunity to get really good at our processes because it's so hard. Let's say like our best month this year is like 360, 355. And we were going into this month looking at like 220, you know, like given like the people that were going on vacation, pausing. So like Dan and I were like, this is bad. And you know, we're almost through the month and like, we're probably going to do our second best month of the year this month. And it was from doing a million things with extra effort, tightly, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, doing better follow-ups, creating paid promotion, working with our sales team, getting people on the phones more, integrating new CRMs. Like there was a lot of many things that we did. And I can't really contribute like one thing that made the big difference, but we closed $100,000 gap from effort. And then the thought is now that I'm like, man, we never would have learned those things. We never would have done those things if we didn't have to do them when it was the hardest. And now we can apply all those things to September, January, when they come back, and hopefully we see a big lift. So yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense that like, man, this is a sucky month. My people are going to be gone. This is a good time to regroup. But for us, it was a really good opportunity to just force yourself to increase your effectiveness.
Yeah. And I would say there's a difference between, like in the example that you bring up, like maybe this person has an established gym that they've been running for 5 or 8 years, and they just know that their ebbs and flows, and they've like kind of planned out for the year. I think that's very different than like we basically opened a new location. And I think like your tactic when you open a new location and you have to get it filled up and the expenses are as high as they are in New York City, like you have to make moves. In 2 years, if we still stayed with these 4 locations and we had an established base of clientele, maybe we would feel different about it. I don't know. I guess we'll see when we get there. But I think that's like an important distinction between like if you've been around for a while and just know your rhythms, or like you're trying to get something to be like an established full gym.
Who the fuck finds $100,000 under their couch cushion?
Yeah.
You want to come look under Kilo's couch if that's what like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a you do.
No,
Okay,
I mean, like, but like, I didn't realize that
what
it's
were you
possible.
doing so horribly wrong before that?
Dude, to be honest, like we weren't trying. Like it's not that we were trying in a different way. We opened this new gym. We were like, we are going to double down on like client retention. We are going to elevate managers. We hired 12 managers across the gyms. We were still like managing everything like from the top end before this. So we lifted people up. We increased salaries. We created incentive structures. We were like, this will solve the problem. This will, building out the product, elevating our coaching staff, putting people in charge, getting them bought in on the result of a successful gym will do the work for us. I think we came into the beginning of July after trying to do that for like a year and realized like, yeah, it's not going to do it. Sometimes you just got to push and you got to go get new customers. You got to do everything harder. And I think we were just kind of like not pushing hard enough on it.
Yeah. Your system's going to break one way or the other, right? Like either you're going to just over-index on leads and sales and clients and crank up your gym and have like a very soft net to cash them in. And you're just going to be leaking all over the place because you have nobody to take care of these people. You have no infrastructure. You've brought in all these people and you can't really take care of them. Or you could do the flip side, which is like, I'm going to build this huge, great infrastructure, put that all in place, spend the money to make it happen. And then you got to wake up one day and be like, okay, now I need people to satisfy this. So, and ideally you're doing both, but it's very hard to do kind of both with the same energy at the same time. So like it's a little bit of pick your poison.
Sounds like some leads were slipping through the cracks.
100%.
Some people weren't, getting followed up with. And
we didn't have
the
systems in
sales
place.
script maybe wasn't being followed. And then you were like, oh, we need members. And then some of those things got dialed in and hey, there's the extra $100,000.
So for the gym owners at home who want to find an extra $100,000 in a month laying under their couch cushions, what are the?
You can.
There's effort.
Yeah. Well,
Let's get tactical.
Yeah. But
what are we doing? What are we doing?
First thing, this kind of happened to us last Thanksgiving or around November. And we pre-sold year upfront memberships for 30% off.
28% off.
28% off. We brought in an extra 220,000. Like we were, probably running 100,000 low, but we overshot it. So I think like if you're a gym that has people that aren't already paying your upfront offers and they love your gym and they know they're going to do it and you need money now, like that will give you an ability to get some money. I think then the key is you got to take that and you have to multiply it through an effective acquisition strategy of some sort, where the money you put in, you get more out on the other end.
And who's managing that for you? Like you said, ads. I mean, when I hear that,
Yeah.
I just hear ads. What is it? Like,
that's me, really.
You're keeping
I mean, every day it's like, this was our ad spend on Meta. This was our ad spend on Google. This was our total ad spend. This is the number of calls that we had. This is the number of clients that we acquired. This was the cost of acquiring a customer. This was our ROAS. And like every day has its own line. It adds up over the month. I'm watching where it goes. I'm seeing if the money is being multiplied. It gives you the confidence that like the machine is working. Like you're going to have good days and bad days. Sometimes you're going to spend a lot more than you collect, but like in the net, like keep doing what you're doing. It will work. Like just keep pushing on it. Keep getting better at it.
Yeah. You have to have like a reasonable time horizon for this to happen. Like it always takes longer than you think it's going to take, but if you can kind of keep your eye on the metrics and see that you're heading in the right direction, and you kind of hit the gas as hard as you can while things are still heading in the right direction, and just keep an eye on it and just make those decisions day by day.
Wow, I'm so proud of you to hear you. Just hearing you talk like that. You've grown so much as a gym owner.
Yeah. Dude, I remember when we first sat down and you're like, how many customers do you have? I'm like, why the fuck should I know that, John? Like,
ask me how much I bench.
Yeah, you guys have really come along. Well, that would have been, it's probably
2016?
10 years ago now, or 8 years ago now.
2016.
So, you guys have... Yeah, these guys were not always like this. So you hear them talk a big game here, and they're backing it up. They're the real deal, but they were not like this when they started. So you guys are getting better every time you come on the show. Every time you just get a little better. That's why we keep having you on.
Yeah, we're trying. We put in the effort. And the other thing that maybe like is worth saying is a little bit of context. Like New York City, like the numbers are higher on both ends, right? So like $100,000, like if you're in the middle of the country, probably sounds completely wild. But if you saw our rents and our payrolls and everything else, that would also sound equally wild. So it probably for most people, it's not going to be that, and it probably doesn't even need to be that.
So let's talk about staff real quick.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about all these
12 managers.
Yeah,
what does that even
I know
mean?
that this happened.
There's 4 locations. You got 3 managers at every location.
Well, so this happened recently too. A lot of you've ascended a lot of people. You've done some rearranging.
Yeah.
What happened? What was the thought process?
Yeah, so we wanted to, like I said, kind of make each gym its own basically location, its own entity, its own self-sustained kind of business under the bigger umbrella, right? So certain things we wanted to make sure that was managed on the individual level. And one of those things was like a general manager who handles operations and upfront sales, a client success manager who basically is in charge of retention, working with the general manager but keeping asses in the seats, and a head coach who's like kind of responsible for the training and the training staff.
And do those 3 people also coach, or
They also coach, yeah. They also coach. The general manager coaches the least because they have the most like kind of operational load. The other, like the client success manager, even though they have kind of operational duties, a lot of that relationship is built on the training floor, right, with clients. So they still see that. And then obviously the head coach trains the most because they're the best coach we have, and they're responsible for the training staff and the product. So, that's a kind of we have that installed in each of our gyms. And then there's, depending on how many sessions are remaining, then they have like a part-time training staff that kind of supports them to round out the schedule.
Everything's W-2, right? Now that I remember.
Mm-hmm. Currently, everything's W-2, yeah.
Yeah, and then who's on salary, or is everybody paid for hours in?
So we had some of the part-time people are currently on salary just because we had that deal established as we rearranged this, but like probably as we progress, those 3 roles that I mentioned will be like W-2 salaried people, and then everybody else will be more like part-time basis.
Hour work. Yeah. All right. So we got the training infrastructure. We got the chiefs here. In terms of administrative support, other people in an operation like this, who else you got?
Yeah, we got, so that's like really,
you got Kyle's wife modeling on the website. So she's on payroll.
Yeah. So Jess actually, Jess and I run, and really it's Jess. I just kind of support her. She runs our remote product. So we have some people who are like outside of the New York area who want to train. Jess has like a really a lot of experience in the running community. She's like, you've got very deep ties to there. So running combined with strength training is really her specialty. So we have a pool of people really around the world now who do that with her. So that's like an arm of the business that we've given her a little support, like me and one other person, but she really mostly runs it, and that's her day-to-day job. And then I would say everybody else that we have is like on a vendor basis that helps us, you know?
Yeah, accounting, web development, like our CRM developer, email marketing.
Yeah.
So just agency worker, or just some vendors. Guy you found who's a vendor. All right. So no head of, no CMO, no anything like that.
No, we tried that type stuff, and
sounds like it's Kyle. Kyle's the chief marketing and sales.
We dream of the day where there's a CMO. I really think like there's two for our business. If someone's really watching the revenue and responsible for the revenue, and then there's someone who's responsible for the enrollments, you have the areas of the business that need to be focused on.
Yeah, and everyone else has to be fulfilling a task or responsible for driving revenue in some way, like having like that kind of that like C-suite manager level. It hasn't worked for us at the size that we're currently at.
Yeah, so we were talking about this at lunch, actually. Mm-hmm. So I think it's in Greg Crabtree's book, Simple Numbers. If it's not in there, it's in Vern Harnish's book, Scaling Up. They call the area between 2 and 5 million the Valley of Death.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about how it feels.
Yeah. And the reason it's the Valley of Death is because you've grown past like the owner should be doing all the manager or operational stuff. You need a layer of management, but you can't actually afford it until you're a bigger business.
That feels right. Yeah.
And so you're just kind of grinding out in this like circle where like you need this stuff, but you can't afford it without destroying your business. So a lot of times you'll either push out and hit that 5 million mark and be able to have like the management team, or you scale back down to 2 where it's easy and manageable for it all. So I say that to ask every time you come on the show, we say, what's next for you guys? You know, the first time you said no more locations, and then you got a big location with 2 locations inside of the location.
Yeah.
So what are we doing now? There's going to be 100 forts. What do
perhaps?
Oh,
I think
now it.
Yeah. Oh, perhaps. Perhaps it's 100.
It might be the only way to survive.
Yeah.
Like the further we're into it.
Yeah, I think so. Like in the short term, and I think, you know, maybe it's the conclusion you come to from hearing us speak about this, is that we're trying to really maximize our operations and our offers, right? And figure out what's going to work best for us and really hone that in and get that set before we open up another location. Because why add more problems when we're already like trying to figure things out? If we get to the point, though, where we feel comfortable that something is, listen, we're putting a lot of systems in place. And like I said, we're making each gym kind of its own individual unit, that if we can just copy paste and we feel good about that and we feel like it can be profitable at a margin that we're comfortable with, I think from a product know-how and kind of outreach standpoint, you know, we're doing really well. So it feels like if the systems were in place, the product can survive like, you know, more iterations. But I think the first things first is like getting the systems and the acquisition model and all our processes really dialed in, so we feel good about it before we make that step.
But in terms of, you know, if you were to open more of these, you have the flagship, you have the original. I haven't been to the Upper East Side one, but it's around the same size as the original.
Yeah.
So is the model, you're like 2,000 square feet, that's like the size, and you have a general idea of the amount of members. You like, that's how you would rubber stamp it. You wouldn't do more flagship style locations.
No. I don't think if we did it again, if we had to do it all over again, I don't think we would have 3 gyms on the same block.
Yeah, that seems consistent from all the.
Yeah, that's the only thing. That's the only thing. That's the only ambition that hasn't changed.
Yeah,
that's the only,
yeah.
That's the only regret.
Yeah, because I do think if, like, let's say we still had 4 locations, but they were spread around the city, it's not that we wouldn't have challenges. Of course we would, but I think there's some unique challenges that we wouldn't be facing right now.
Yeah, I could imagine the complexities of having 3 gyms with 12 managers on the same block.
Yeah.
Certainly.
I think another thing that's unique about your guys' gym is that everyone's you do strength cycles, and everyone's stats or weightlifting metrics are all written on the chalkboards or the whiteboards that are all around the gym, right? So also other people we've talked to who are really successful with this model also like do pen and paper, right? Why is this better than a digital solution? And why should gym owners stop caring about a digital solution and just write it on the board instead?
Yeah, I think it feels better. I think there's a stamp that when your name's up there with a score, it's not just what the score is. I don't think anybody actually cares what the score is. I think it says something to yourself that you were there that day and this was the effort that you put out.
And there's a progression you can visually see around the room as you walk around.
It's undeniable when you look at it in that way. And pulling up your phone, looking through the library of digital record is like a very different experience than just looking up, realizing this is public information that everybody can see, and this is who I am, and this is what I did.
And it makes you part of the culture, and that is critical. Like seeing your name on the board alongside other people just makes a huge difference. And then I think a lot of the coaches who've had a lot of success over the years, who are kind of big names that Kyle and I have looked up to, they were just big believers that like the number one thing you do is you write your training down. Like, and you don't do it on your phone, you do it in a book, and you keep track of your training. And that is like the number one key to success. It's like nutrition, like the most kind of effective nutritional intervention is not low carb or macros or carnivore or whatever. It's tracking what it is that you eat. So this is like a version of that. It's a way of actually like driving the results effectively in a way that you might not think would work, but ends up being like really critical.
It's like almost universal. Like all the guys who like to nerd out about training and have a successful gym, that is the non-negotiable. If it's private programs, it seems like they're folder guys, like the manila folder, and your shit goes in the manila folder.
Yeah, that works.
And then for you guys, it's the whiteboard itself.
The other thing too is because it is personal training in a small group, I can walk in and I don't have to think about it. I don't have to look up my thing anywhere. The coach already knows what weights I'm doing because it's written down on the wall over there from last week. And they just walk to the room, they just scream it out to the other person like, this is what you're putting on, and you're ready to go. You don't have to think about it. So it's great.
Hold on, explain how it works.
So it's an 8-week strength training cycle, right?
4 weeks at a time. There's a 16-week total cycle before it like starts over.
And then it's strength progression. So when I squat last week, it's written down and it stays on the board. So when I squat this week, I know, and it's right on the board.
So it's 8 weeks. You're doing the same workout, and then you do a little more weight every time.
Yeah,
well, we're always doing squats. We're always doing deadlifts. We're always doing presses.
Right. As things like progress,
so
you can see
how many whiteboards you got. If you got
whole gym,
the whole gym is it's whiteboarded all. It's wrapped all the way around.
Yeah, like the entire gym is painted as a whiteboard.
We did whiteboard.
It just looks like a club bathroom, just graffiti, but with people's
no, but it's organized. It's neat. It's neat. You can read it.
Like,
you can keep track.
More like a beautiful mind.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got more of that vibe.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's wrapped away. And I guess you erase it every 16 weeks?
Yeah. Every 4 weeks. So yeah, we can handle about 4 weeks
worth of
before we run out of room. But like every 4 weeks we're in a new training cycle. So like the 8 weeks wouldn't be like, if you looked 8 weeks ago, it wouldn't be as relevant as like the week before.
So the fort was not impacted by the CrowdStrike outage.
Yeah, we were not. We're very
So they were insulated. Just another thing you guys need to think about when you're putting your people's workouts on the internet. And cyber attacks, that kind of thing could go down at any moment.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah. I mean, from a business standpoint, right? You need to find ways to make the training sticky outside of just the relationships. Right, like the equipment's certainly not going to do it, but like the relationships are obviously part of it. But like things like this do make the product a little bit more sticky. We retest all our lifts and all our machines every 16 weeks in what we call test week, and people get hyped, and they just stick around. Like people come back from vacation because they're like, oh, it's freaking test week. I got to come in and see what my deadlift is right now. So like things like that really, from a business standpoint, really end up being effective when it comes to retention and engagement.
I mean, there's just a value too, like in owning a gym, providing this service. try to look at what everybody else is doing, try to figure out what they're not and what you're willing to do, and just do it.
With that, I'm going to ask, people want to learn more about you guys. Where do they go to find you?
Sure. So social media wise, we are at the Fort NYC on kind of all the good stuff. And then if you want to follow me on Instagram, at Dan Trink. And there's no real reason to follow me. It's not that interesting. It's mostly photos of my kid, etc. But it is a good way to reach out. So if you want to DM me, as I've said, I think every time I've been on here, I will follow up with you. Like, I'll reach out if you want to have a conversation. Like, I am happy to help people out. A lot of people have helped me out. There's a very likely chance that I don't have the answer, but if you want to talk to me for a half an hour about what's going on, I'm happy to at the very least be an ear. So if anybody wants to reach out, like, more than welcome to do it there.
Yeah, me on the other hand, I haven't checked my Instagram in like a year. So you can message the Fort. I do check that Instagram quite a bit. So the Fort NYC, YouTube, Instagram.
Yeah. Or Dan at thefortnyc.com or Kyle at thefortnyc.com if you want to email us. Like, I would give my cell phone number out here if I could, but
that's a bad idea.
So so I'm not going to do that, but like we will get back to you.
And Teo, where do people go if they want to find out more about us?
Well, you should like and subscribe to Gym World Worldwide on YouTube. And if you're in the market for something that can help you make more money in your gym, check out usekilo.com. It is a great place to learn more about things that we offer, like help with your website, your marketing automation, and gym management software.
And that's it for this week's Gym World Worldwide. If you got a lot of value, book a call with Kilo and forward this podcast on to a gym owner in need. We will catch you next week. And as always, we love you.